it's called Viewlogies, right?
Yeah. So our company name is Viewlogies,
Okay.
and really it's a funeral, video streaming company, but our goal is to enable everyone, no matter where they are, to connect and to hear the stories at the service, and basically to view the eulogies of their
Mhm.
loved ones. And so
Okay.
kind of where the name Viewlogies came from. Maybe I'll start with kind of how we started,
Yeah.
because um, because I think that like illustrates a little bit about why we built something a little bit different than what's commercially available off the shelf. Um, and we started about 6 years ago. And it started with, and in fact, we have a connection to Washington because of it. My sister lives in Seattle, and
Okay.
he is the reason that we started Viewlogies. My grandfather passed away in 2014,
Hmm.
and we were all living in the San Francisco Bay Area in California, but his funeral service was in Utah.
Oh
And my
yeah.
sister was 8 months pregnant and having complications, and I had other kids too, and she just could not go. But she really, really wanted to be there. She really wanted to hear the stories that were shared. She really wanted to kind of like properly lay our grandfather to rest. And so I tried to do a Skype call. I got the Skype video on my phone, and at the beginning of the service, I'm holding it and thinking, okay, it's she's like, it's not coming through. Connection was bad. It just wasn't working. So I'm like, okay, let's scratch that. Let's do an audio call only, so you can at least listen. You won't be able to see stuff, but you'll be able to listen. So I put it on speakerphone. She mutes her line, and I hold up my arm for like an hour in the third row of the service, so she could hear the stories. And I call her afterwards, and she said, or I asked her, how did it go? And she basically said, I probably got 20 or 30% of what was said, kind of
Sure.
thing.
Yeah.
Just, poor audio and room ambient noises and connection and all that stuff. So I turned to my brother, who's sitting next to me, and I said, how do we not have this for funerals with the technology that we have? And this is in 2014. And so we started doing some research about webcasting. Had been around for quite a while. We
Right.
saw there was a big push in the 2008, it looked like, and different companies were trying it in the funeral industry. But we started talking to funeral homes and operators and funeral directors, and it was very clear that the traditional way of doing things was, hey, install software on your computer. You have to like manually do stuff. You have to push buttons. You have to be a videographer. You have to do all these things. And that's not, as the funeral director speaking, we don't want to be a videographer. We don't want
Right.
to, we're here to take care of the families. And so for us, we were like, oh, we can definitely do something different. So we started with a chapel system, which is basically a static camera that we install in your chapel, and we can manage all the streaming part remotely. So you just have to tell us when to start and stop the service,
Okay.
and then you're done, in a funeral home. And so it was really built to be 100% hands-free to funeral operators. And then, yeah, and then you kind of said the equipment piece, like, so we have software now on all the cameras, even the chapel systems. So it's automatically scheduling, starting and stopping streams for funeral homes. And, we're serving thousands of families, right, a month. And so now it's done with software, but, in the early days, it was, us scheduling to start and scheduling to stop and, making it work. So.
What was the kickbacks you were getting from funeral homes back in the early part of this? Was it having the equipment? Was it, I don't have the manpower to operate the equipment? What were you hearing the most of?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, when we started just trying to figure out, like, and we had the luxury, and because it was a passion project for us, right? We really wanted to help families connect and heal,
Yeah.
and so we wanted to make, and then we quickly, and at the same time, kind of like this twofold mission: helping the families, but helping the funeral homes. And so making it really easy for funeral homes was our second mission, right? Our second thing. And so we iterated for, gosh, I would say the first 2 years was just getting a pilot, figuring out what's the right workflow, figuring out how the families want to interact with it, figuring out how the funeral homes want to interact with it. And in those early days, yeah, it was just the whole hands-free thing, right? I don't want to have to push a button. I don't want to have, or learn how to do software. I don't want to have to send emails to families and invite them. I don't want to have to answer support calls if people are having technical support issues. We do all that now. But that was the for those initial customers. But I would say it was there was definitely funeral homes out there that got it, and they're like, oh yeah, we want to do video streaming. But then there was other funeral homes that were like, we don't even want to do video streaming. Right?
Yeah.
This is pre-pandemic. And the biggest objection was, well, our families don't ask for it, so
Okay.
then we don't need it. And so the conversation that we had in those days was, I totally get that, right? But what if we tried it out? What if you just presented it to the family, right? And I think funeral directors, and we've learned from funeral directors over the years, that they are here to serve the families, and they want the family is in this time of need and time of grief, and they don't know what's available, and kind of the funeral director or funeral arranger is there to, help them understand what is available for them. Right. And so that's kind of how we presented it back in the early days of like, present it to them, share it. And lo and behold, once people knew, about 30% of people would say, yes, we want that. So.
Well, it's an amazing thing. I know with, I don't want to say post-pandemic, because I guess we are still in the pandemic, but we've seen so much more usage of video streaming. And it kind of amazes me when you watch the numbers and see how many people that are not in attendance and where they're watching from that are now able to join that funeral ceremony and be a part of that from across the country, across the world, that whether there was a pandemic or not would not be able to make it anyway, but now they can participate.
Yeah. We did a study with our data with one customer, and we took their views, right? How many people are viewing the streams? Mm-hmm. And we did 12-month comparison from, I think it was April 2020. So April 2019 to April 2020. So a 12-month period. And, those 8 months, before the pandemic, they had these, it was pretty consistent people viewing. And right. They were in the thousands, like they had a lot of services and they did quite a bit. And then after the pandemic, it went up like three times, and then in March, and then another like 2 times in April. So it was like by the time, and that's kind of now the new norm of video views. So it's like almost 6 times people watching it remotely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the new norm, and people kind of expect it now, it seems like.
So one of the things that I hear a lot about is, why I hear people say, why spend the money on the equipment, on the service, that kind of stuff? I can just do Facebook. I can do a Facebook Live or something like that. But as we've seen in the past, Facebook limits what you can do, number one. Also, if you have any sort of music or anything like that, then you're really in trouble, because they just delete, or they don't delete it, but they mute it. And I'm also hearing that their algorithms are starting to count how many times you use Facebook Live for services, and are going to, I guess, start penalizing possibly people that use it on a regular basis. How does that compare to what you're doing? Can you play music? Can you have music? Can you have videos that are presented that you're streaming? How does that work?
We can, because it's a private broadcast, so it's protected by a PIN that people have to go and enter it. It's for personal use there, and then we buy licensing obviously on our end to facilitate that in case families do share it more publicly and more broadly. So yes, the music licensing issue is is not an issue with our service compared to YouTube or Facebook.
So do you need a license, broadcast license, stream license, webcast license, anything like that when they use Viewlogies?
So we have them internally at our company, so that
Okay.
kind of span the usage for us, since it is going through our system and through our platform. But there's a little bit of an area there where it is private. It's privately held. It's a private broadcast, and so because of that, families can, just like you put on your tribute video that you have up on the screen, a Beatles song or whatever, you can do that for personal use. And so similarly with the way that we've set it up, that falls under that realm most
Okay.
Yeah.
So how does it work? I kind of briefly looked at the website, and it asks for a PIN or a code to enter. I'm assuming that meant that each person that uses the service receives a specialized code to get into that platform. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. And I'll jump right into that. I just want to make one more comment about the Facebook thing, just because it does come up, and a lot of funeral homes are using Facebook Live.
Yeah.
And we were just at, I was just visiting with a funeral home in Arizona that was sharing their issues with Facebook Live, and just, even the family not knowing where the link is at before the service starts. It doesn't, because Facebook, it starts when it starts. And being able to communicate to family members beforehand is difficult. The branding to the funeral home, right? It's Facebook, but it's not building your brand as a premium provider or as a person who's delivering a great experience. So we have a little checklist that we've shared with some of our customers, that we've built for our customers and shared with them and put their logo on it, that they can give to families. And here's what we offer. Here's what we offer at Sesson Shed's Funeral Home. Here's what Facebook Live offers, right? And it's got the side by side and what you get for both options.
Sure.
So anyway, I'm happy to share that with anyone who contacts us later. We'd be happy to share that with folks. So your question about how it works, it is PIN protected, and that's by design. When we went through a lot of iterations on what should the workflow be for the families, and how should they do this. And so what we do is the funeral homes typically will submit a form, or tell us when the stream needs to start, what the event is, and all that. We create custom pages, which have the videos on there. They have the name of the decedent. They have the logo of the funeral home. So all that branding is, that captive audience is seeing your funeral home on there. And then we send in invites out to the families, both email and text invites. And those invites will have a link to the page as well as the PIN to get in. And we saw there's quite a few people that are trying to do video streaming this last year. But when we first started, there was one or two, people that we felt were competitors, and people that were doing something. And back then they had you open up, create or download a mobile app right on your phone and create an account, like with an email and password. And as soon as we started talking to family members, and especially the older generation, we realized that's too complicated. Like creating another account, crazy, right? But I think about my grandma or somebody who's going to go and watch this, and so we decided that it had to be really easy for the family to access the video, but it still had to be private. It still had to be, protect people's privacy, and so we went with a PIN, and so a password, and then we've iterated to a 6-digit PIN, which is just really easy for families to access the video. So
it seems to be what we're used to these days too, is the 6-digit PIN.
Exactly. Yeah. So on the email, it tells them that information. They go to it and they can access the page and access the video. And the video is, we have a countdown obviously on the page of when the video is going to start. It publishes to their time zone. We have, some features where we can link to the obituary page. We have a guest list. We have the technical support number on there, and then the video will start when the stream is scheduled to start, and then the recording goes back up on that same page right after the stream is over, after it processes all the video in our servers.
Yeah.
So pretty easy process.
How does that work, the recording? Can you go in and download that, or is that always going to be on that page that you'd have to go to the page to watch it if you want to come back to it?
Yeah, it's funny. We were writing an article for ICCFVA last year, and I was just talking to one of our prospects, somebody that was considering us, and they said, "Oh, it's like the Netflix for funerals. You can go back and just watch as much as you want, binge on it," right? I'm like, okay, that's, yeah, maybe an interesting way to look at
That's
it.
clever.
Yeah, you can go back on there and watch it anytime. And then if families do want the download, they can request it to our support line, and we'll provide them a link to download it, and then they can have the file for themselves forever as well. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Is that a file that they would be able to share with others, or is that something that's just specific to them? And they'd have to, if they want multiple copies, for example, how do they do that? Is it downloadable multiple times, or just the one?
Yeah, they can push that link as many times as they want to download it. And then what happens is the families share the link and password and the invitations out with family and friends. And so those family and friends now have access to the video page and can go back and rewatch it anytime that they want as well. So it's viewable for them too. So
now, is that a separate page from the funeral home page, or is that does it mask the funeral, or is it part of the funeral home's page, or would you be able to go to the funeral home and find it, or with a link or something?
Yeah, just from a scalability standpoint, it's not on the funeral home website. We've done some custom projects with funerals for like Memorial Day and other things where they've done it on their site for like not a service, but for Memorial Day events or Labor Day events. But on the regular, it's got the funeral home's logo on the top and branded with that funeral home so that they know. And then we typically link to obituary pages, which takes people back to the funeral home page. And we want to make it as kind of as branded experience as possible for the funeral home, but also scalable that we can easily do that for many funeral homes.
And so, did I hear you correct? You set the equipment in the chapel. You have portable equipment, I'm assuming, as well, to take to a gravesite or a church or something. I can see that picture, or the camera behind you there. Yeah, I'm assuming that's probably one of the portable ones, as it's on a tripod with the microphone. But so that all uploads right straight the same way. Does the portable operate the same way as the static camera in the chapel, in which we tell you, okay, 10 a.m. start this thing, and you guys we basically set it up and you start it from remote? Is that right?
Yeah. So that was, again, we wanted to apply those same principles when we built the mobile system. And so, if you think about, or as we were thinking about the whole idea of why we built it hands-free, part of it is user operator error, and you only have one chance to create a great experience for this service, and you cannot have it not work. And Rob, you have kids. I think we've talked about that. Yeah. And I have 3 kids, and I've gone and set up a tripod, and I'm going to record them at a game or something, and I go to push record and walk away and watch, come back and push stop. To realize I actually just pushed the record button because it was already recording, and I pushed stop the first time, right? And so that whole aspect, and then again talking to funeral homes, and that even now, even in the pandemic, when we launched our mobile system, we launched it last year, the idea of still having to download apps, open up apps, figure out which thing I'm pushing, which service I'm doing, pushing the record button, making sure it's working, like all of those things was still cumbersome. And you don't want to have any errors or have it not work. Right. And so I mean, the worst thing, and I don't know if is probably, maybe getting sued for damages. I've never heard of that, and we don't want to go there. But if it doesn't work, the families will ask for a refund, and they're not going to ask for the $100 or $300 or whatever the funeral home charges for the stream. They're going to ask for their whole $10,000 back, right? And so
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of times. I think families get these services because they know that there's at least one person back somewhere that wants to be there.
Yeah.
But what they don't realize is for every one person, there's 10 people that are actually in addition that are going to be watching it. And so that realization of, you're trying to do this for the one person and it's going to everybody. And if you don't do it right, you do not have another chance to do it. You can't start the funeral over and say, okay, I'll hit record it this time. I'll make sure to do it right this time.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's got to be something. And I think that it's kind of a cool idea that you guys have that remote access to be able to start and stop that, because at least where we're at, funeral homes out here operate on such skeleton crews that a lot of them can't do the streaming just simply because they don't have somebody that can be dedicated to operating that. You can't set it and forget it. You have to actually sit there and watch it the whole way and make sure that the power stays on or something, you don't somehow bump the stop record button or whatever. Yeah. You have to have that one person dedicated. So this is a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, I'll pull it out here. And I mean, how it's so difficult to say, hey, I'm giving you $10,000 back or whatever, and you negotiate or something. But what's worse, in my opinion, is it not working or skipping even or whatever, and the family doesn't ask for a refund, but then they go tell everyone in your community that they had a horrible experience, and now you lose future customers and future so that was just really important. So pull this up a little bit closer so we can all see it, but the mobile system, we explored off the shelf stuff. There's off the shelf, streaming cameras for video podcasting, right? Sure, there's cell phones. There's all kinds of equipment that we could do to service this. But if you think about, again, going back to the reliability standpoint, the internet connection is probably one of the most important things. And if you look on our phones, right, you see any antennas here, it's it's a tiny little wire. And we get good service, right? But when you start streaming video packets over the internet, over the mobile connection, and their cellular connection, you start getting some skips sometimes. You might have interruptions, that kind of stuff, and and oftentimes it won't work in locations like cemeteries. Yeah. So we have a industrial grade cellular modem in this system, which police scanners use, and it has these dual antennas that are 3 inches long. So the connection to cell towers is much stronger and much more reliable. And it can be reached, cell towers, in more remote locations like cemeteries. We just did one with the Neptune Society in the San Francisco Bay on a boat as well. Okay. It can be taken almost anywhere that you would go.
I'll say that again, because that's interesting. You did it in San Francisco on a boat in San Francisco. I've been there. There's no cell towers in San Francisco Bay.
No, there's not.
So that's really cool because, you think about it, you look at it on a map, it's like, well, it's not that big, but it is. And that's a huge stretch to try to connect to those cell towers that are on the land. So that's actually kind of a neat feature.
Yeah. So I think that's super important. You can take it anywhere, take it to backyard, take it on a hillside, you take it to different locations, which is awesome. The other, I guess, feature that we were looking at is we were talking to a cemetery in Colorado last summer, and they were using an iPad to do a stream, and it's sunny and it overheated, and the thing turned off on them. So all of our equipment is really rated for high heat and extreme temperatures, but we also have the casing of the system is made out of a heat resistant polymer, so it reflects solar rays. and keeps everything, ensures that the system is even cooler, which is cool. And then, yeah, microphone. I mean, we often use microphones, but again, it's a windproof. It's directional microphone. It's got really good audio. But I think the biggest feature, like in the design, is there's just a one power button here that you push and it turns it on, and that's all you have to do as an operator. So you just push the button, and that's nice. You don't have to like hook up your microphone. You don't have to like put a TV or a cell phone into a thing and open up an app and do all these things. And so it's kind of a point and shoot and turn it on. And again, our system does everything else automatically.
I'm assuming it's probably some sort of autofocus or something, but can you zoom in on things, or does it have that capability?
It's all remote accessible. So we can do zooms and do different things, but yeah, our software, it automatically focuses, and does all that stuff for you. And then it's a semi wide angle lens and so really you just have to point and shoot, and it works really well. So both systems have pros and cons. The Chapel system and the mobile system have pros and cons, right? This is a little bit more not as hidden, but it can be taken anywhere. So
looks like it's pretty well built. It's not gonna. I mean, obviously you don't want to throw it to the ground or something, but it looks like if it tips over or drops, it's probably going to be in pretty good shape based off of the design that you have there.
Yep, that's right. It's been knocked over a few times and still works great. And we have someone who builds these that does just a really impeccable job. So
is this something that you created, that Viewlogies created, or is it a design that was used elsewhere that you've incorporated into Viewlogies?
Yeah, this is created by Viewlogies. It's patent pending right now, and it's built specifically for funerals, for funerals in mind, right? And
so I would assume that there's cost, and I don't want to get too much into that because I want to point out that you are going to be at DeathCon this year, and you're coming to that. You're going to be one of our sponsors, and I want you to talk direct, and I want our listeners that come to that to talk direct to you and get all that information direct from Viewlogies, not through the podcast. But this is I'm excited to be a part of it, and I think it's a cool idea. I really looking forward to seeing it live and seeing how it works.
Yeah, Rob, we're super excited to meet everybody. We've been focused the first couple of years in California, and now we have customers in Arizona, New Mexico, Oregon, none in Washington. So this will be our first year, and we're excited to join everybody and meet everybody in Washington. And so really thank you for letting us come and join you and get to know everybody. So that'll be exciting for us too. And yeah, price is very reasonable, but we'll definitely share more with folks.
For those of us that are impatient like myself, how do we look at or talk with you prior to wait until August to meet you at DeathCon? If we want to reach out, what's the website?
It's Viewlogies.com. So VIEWLOGIES. It looks like it's in my name if that gets recorded. Viewlogies.com. And then info@viewlogies.com. You can email us there. And yeah, we're happy to provide more information if you go there and just contact us. And you can even ask for Rick, and I'd love to chat with anyone and anyone that's listening. So
that's pretty cool. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's great to chat. And I remember the first time you and I chatted, I'm like, oh, I like Rob. He's awesome.
Don't say that too loud. I'll get an ego. No, this is great. It's, technology, gosh, I can't say it enough. I mean, there's only so many things that you can do within funeral service that's changing. Of course, everybody knows we've added some new disposition, and that's great. but it's all part of the same thing. It's all wrapped around technology. And that's really where we're seeing huge changes, huge differences in funeral service. So this is just another piece to that puzzle of seeing how funeral service is changing, not just in Washington, but across the world. And video streaming, gosh, I can't say enough for it. It's just, the people that can't attend, whether it doesn't even have to be a funeral. I mean, you could use this for arrangement conference. Does it do live? That was another question I wanted to ask you. Is it a live stream like a Skype or a FaceTime where people can interact, or is it watching only and then somehow returning that information back to you?
Yeah, it's watching. It's one way, right? So it's watching
Okay.
only, and so no interactions. We definitely explored that last year. If that's something that's doable, we got a lot of feedback from people like, I'm crying on there. I don't necessarily need to be,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, and people not muting themselves. And we've tried a few things, and so it seems like this is still the way to go right now for
Yeah.
families. This is what their preference is. But if people do want to do a Zoom call, they can do a Zoom call,
Sure. Yeah.
and that's easy. And we actually, our system does allow us to stream Zoom calls too, so we
Oh,
can
does it? Cool.
those
All right.
one way. If people have like, hey, I want 5 people to be on the Zoom interacting, but then the rest of the people can just watch it one way, we can do some stuff like that too. So yeah, there's a lot of different options
Yeah.
out there. And
That's even further than I was thinking. I was actually thinking of the different applications where one way would be perfect for services, but more of a Zoom style would be perfect for arrangement conferences and things. But the idea that you can do both, uh, super interesting.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think we've definitely focused on the families, that idea of connecting and healing. And you said it great, like, hey, people that can't attend, and so there's so many times. I mean, obviously now with it's harder and people traveling and all that stuff is more difficult, but even without that, there's immediate family members who a brother that lives in Florida that is maybe has health conditions, excuse me, can't travel, or a granddaughter who's in college and has finals, or something like that. And then what we've seen is that is so immediate family is important, but it's opened up even further to just like high school people or work colleagues that wouldn't really go to the actual in-person service, but they'll stop and take an hour break from work and watch it and support the family and kind of lay a friend to rest type of thing. So it's definitely extended beyond just just the people who would be there in person typically, which is pretty interesting.
Just thinking outside of the box too, a funeral home, if they really wanted to get involved in the community, especially on the mobile site, could even offer the service, I would think, for things other than funerals. You mentioned graduations and birthdays and stuff. I mean, seems like it could be a system that could be used for that as well, where call the funeral home and have them come out and do the stream the birthday party or the retirement or something.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I know there's a lot of, I mean, I feel like there's folks out there that are kind of adjusting the funeral home to be more like life event centers, right? And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, it could be all of the above as far as
That's
what they
cool.
use it. Yeah.
I like it. Hey,
Well,
Rick, thank you. I'm looking forward to meeting you. We're going to see you here in a couple of weeks, DEF CON. It is August. Let me look at my calendar. It's August 17, 18, and 19th in Leavenworth. And you guys are going to be here. A bunch of other folks are coming, and it's going to be a good time. And we get to see in live and in person how the program works. So
that's right. I'm so
yeah,
excited, Rob. It's great to meet you, and looking forward to meeting everybody there.
beautiful. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rob.